So the 9th of November 2016 is going to go down as one of the most shocking days in history, as it's the day that Donald Trump got elected President of the United States of America in one of the most divisive and scandalous campaigns ever. It has a lot of people talking about it, so what do you think about it?
What do I think about it? I think that it's not the way that I would have voted. When you got to face with the best of two bad candidates. But I think the world's changing. I think politics is changing, and I believe that in some respects this is like a pendulum, whether it's left wing, right wing, left wing, right wing, left wing, right wing, and then before you know it, you're here. And what happens is everyone is fighting over that 2%. Look at Brexit, so close, 51%, 49%. Look at what's happened over in the States, pretty much 51%, 49%. The world is changing. I think that technology has had an impact on that. The fact that social media has played a big impact with this election. We've got what we've got. You know, my price of bread hasn't increased yet. My price of milk hasn't increased. And I have no idea what's going to happen in 1 minute's time, let alone a year's time, let alone in a decade's time. But yeah, it's an interesting times. What I will say about it is it's actually quite exciting in a strange sort of bizarre way, in that it's a result the likes of which this whole politics, global politics, changes forever today. And I believe, fingers crossed, that it's going to work out just well. I don't believe that anyone's you look at his acceptance speech today, all right? He came out and he was not in any way or form to Donald Trump that we've seen throughout the entire election. This was a different, more contrite Donald Trump, and I hope that continues.
Presidential.
Yeah, you know, and that's. But maybe, just maybe, if I think about this for networking, when I started for networking, I won the initial public vote by being disruptive. You know, I was pushing over tables, not literally, but I created mayhem in an established market, which was the status quo, which was basically the left. You know, the left of networking, the hard right of networking. There was no mainstream, and I went into a space which was a congested market, and unsettled it. And you know, like I say, I have no idea what Donald Trump's intent is. He's clearly a driven, tenacious businessman, and whether he's going to run the country like a business, we'll soon find out. Like I say, I have no idea. I've got as much inside track on this as every other individual in the free world today.
It was a really interesting point you briefly touched on, and it's that although Donald Trump spent less than half of what Hillary did on TV ads and billboard campaigns, he still won, and won by a landslide.
That's right.
And that's mostly attributed to the fact of his massive social media presence. What do you think we can learn from that?
And that actually social media is free. What you say and what you do in that social media is going to be define your success or failure. If you think about me as a social media person who uses social media, you know, I talk on there, hey, I've just had a cheese sandwich, lol. And people go, well, who's interested in that? I've got 64,000 followers that are interested in what cheese sandwich I had. And that's it. I think that politics is now more than ever about personalities. And I believe that business, more than ever, is about personality as well.
So a lot of people are asking the question, what now? Which I believe you've anticipated that with careful and cunning planning, and you've got a book
called Now What?
Today.
Absolutely. So the book Now What is out in a week's time, and yeah, it's a book written for people that are waking up in a different world to the one that they went to sleep in, and I believe that that's what Now What is about, because the only time we ever ask now what in our life is when something like this happens, when something traumatic happens, or we have a loss or a bereavement, or change a job, or change a house, or start a family, or get married. That's the only time we ask now what. And what I'm suggesting in this book is that we ask that question ahead of that time when you actually need to know the answer. And you know, for me, now what, the whole book, the premise is of you controlling the controllables, those things that you've got an impact on. I have no impact, me personally, on global politics. So actually what I've got impact on is my little world, and that's what I'm going to focus on.
That's interesting. I remember one of your early books I read, you spoke about the journey and being important to enjoy that, and not just the destination. I guess that would fit as well, because you could, when you achieve something, what do you want then?
And I think the thing is with that is it is about enjoying the journey, because one of the things that I talk about in the book as well, Now What, is this whole piece as regards every single morning we wake up and we go to a prize ticket machine, press the button and it spits out a ticket. Wonderful. And then we press it, it goes to the next day and we get a ticket. And what we do with that prize ticket, we can choose to be miserable, we can choose to be positive, we can choose to do something positive with our lives, or we can choose to go, my life's shit. And one day I'm going to go up to that machine. In fact, all of us are going to go up to that machine and no ticket's going to come out. And we're going to want more tickets, and there's none. So this is why it's so important that what you do with your ticket time is you spend it wisely.
Yes. One of the things I've enjoyed you doing lately is setting up the Geeks for networking, which has been quite a popular
for community,
on Facebook.
Well, I'm a geek. I am a geek, no question. You know, I actually look like a drug dealer. I'm not a drug dealer, not anymore. But I'm actually a geek. I'm a massive computer gamer, big Star Wars fan. I have Star Wars figurines and the likes. I'm 43-year-old, and you know what? I think that's what success is. Success is doing what you want and enjoying it. Just because I watch Star Wars or play my PlayStation 4, people go, oh, well, shouldn't you be walking around the Countryside Alliance and helping? No, that's not what I'm about. I like doing what I like doing, and I'm a geek. And the sub forum of the 4Networking, Nerds 4Networking, was my brainchild, and I just wanted a place to belong, a place where I can talk about Star Wars figures and not actually feel like a pariah.
Yes,
True story.
And it's great with 4N that you can form these other connections with people.
Yeah.
It's not just cold and dry.
And I think that's the thing there, Andrew. You know, you think about the whole piece where there is 4Networkers within there that are now playing computer games with each other in the evenings on PlayStation 4 or Xbox. How cool is that? So the networking transcends just going to these business meetings. It's actually, I think that's something that 4Networking has done beautifully, is putting people before business. Because if I don't like you and you don't like me, we wouldn't be here today. Do you see what I'm saying? I'd have been busy. So it's about personal relationships, and that's something that's been a cornerstone of everything that we've done.
Yes, for me, that's probably the more important part of 4N.
Yeah, well, it's never to be underestimated. I think people go, oh, well, it's business networking is about business. Well, business networking used to be about business. Business networking should be about business, of course it should. But first and foremost, it's about people. People before business. You get the people bit right, the business follows.
Yes. So as a geek, you're probably aware of the author Douglas Adams.
Absolutely. Hitchhiker's Guide.
Absolutely, yes. So he's always my favourite writer. And there was I don't know if you got through all the books.
No, I didn't.
There's one called Mostly Harmless.
Right.
And your title of your new book, Now What, reminded me of this passage from that, which is A Whole New Planet. It was a few of us are looking to...
Yeah, right, I get Mars, yeah.
So Arthur Dent had been in some hellholes in his life, but he'd never before seen a spaceport which had a sign saying, even travelling despondently is better than arriving here. To welcome visitors, the arrivals hall featured a picture of the president of Now What, smiling. It was the only picture anybody could find of him, and it had been taken shortly after he'd shot himself. So although the photo had been retouched, as well as could be managed, the smile it wore was a rather ghastly one. The side of his head had been drawn back on in crayon. No replacement had been found with the photograph, because no replacement had been found for the president. There was only one ambition which anyone on the planet ever had, and that was to leave. Arthur checked himself into a small hotel on the outside of town, and sat glumly on the bed, which was damp, and flipped through the little information brochure, which was also damp. It said that the planet of Now What had been named after the opening words of the first settlers to arrive there after struggling across light years of space to reach the furthest unexplored outreaches of the galaxy. The main town was called Oh Well. There weren't any other towns to speak of. Settlement and Now What had not been a success, and the sort of people who actually wanted to live on Now What were not the sort of people you would want to spend time with. Trading was mentioned in the brochure. The main trade that was carried out was in the skins of the Now Whattian bog hog. But it wasn't a very successful one, because no one in their right minds would want to buy a Now Whattian bog hog skin. The trade only hung on by its fingernails because there was a significant number of people in the galaxy who were not in their right minds. Arthur felt very uncomfortable looking at some of the other occupants of the small passenger compartment of the ship. The brochure described some of the history of the planet. Whoever had written it obviously started out trying to drum up a little enthusiasm for the place by stressing it wasn't actually cold and wet all the time, but could find little positive to add to this, so the tone of the piece quickly degenerated into savage irony. It talked about the early years of settlement. It said that the major activities pursued on Now What's were those of catching, skinning and eating Now Whattian bog hogs, which were the only extant form of life on Now What's, all other having long ago died of despair. The bog hogs were tiny, vicious creatures, and the small margin by which they fell short of being completely inedible was the margin by which life on the planet subsisted. So what were the rewards, however small, that made life on Now What worth living? Well, there weren't any, not a one. Even making yourself some protective clothing out of bog hog skins was an exercise in disappointment and futility, since the skins were unaccountably thin and leaky. This caused a lot of puzzled conjecture among the settlers. What was the bog hog's secret of keeping warm? If anyone had learnt the language the bog hogs spoke to each other, they would have discovered that there was no trick. The bog hogs were as cold and wet as anyone else on the planet. No one had the slightest desire to learn the language of the bog hogs, for the simple reason that these creatures communicated by biting each other very hard on the thigh. Life on Now What being what it was, most of what a bog hog might have to say could easily be signified by those means.
So, my inspiration, and I'm sure you found that one out before. No, I've never even heard that before. Amazing. So, yeah, I mean, obviously on the right track there. I'm quite happy to be aligned with Douglas.
Very good. And talking about despair and despondency, a lot of people who don't run their own businesses maybe have an idea that it's the easy life.
Yeah.
You know, you're staying in bed, you get paid for nothing. And it's the easy way out.
Maybe it's after 10 years. Maybe it is after 10 years. And I'd like to say that I'm 12 years in now and I'm still not sleeping in bed all day. I think what I've had throughout the duration of my 12-year journey of running my own business is you do have flashes of that when seemingly you don't have to do much work. And then equally you have flashes where all hell breaks loose. So nothing quite changes. You know, I'm in a position now, 10 years to the day, where I stepped down as managing director of 4 Networking, I'm not a founder. So technically I'm not involved in the day-to-day. But guess what? I'm always going to be involved in the day-to-day in some capacity, in some small capacity. But initially, I think when you start a business off, it's more, when you're employed, it's sort of payday, skint, payday, skint, payday, skint. When you're self-employed, it's skint, 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 payday, payday, payday. That's roughly how it goes. And a lot of people quit at the point when it's going to break through. And I've kept going, you know, and there's been 11 times when I've wanted to quit in the last 12 years, 11 times, you know, 0 not quitting, 10 quitting. I've been 9.8, 9.9 about 11 times.
So one of the secrets, because you'll have met, apart from your own experiences, you've been clearly very successful with 4N and the other ventures you have, speaking, etc., and the books, but you'll have seen literally thousands of people.
Yeah, no question.
And so you'll have got some idea of the difference between those that make it and those that don't. Is not quitting the key thing?
Yeah, I think, and also having a reason as to why you're doing it. I think if your only motivation is money, it's not enough. You need a purpose beyond that. See, this was a movement. This was a movement. This was about making a positive difference. This was about doing a Donald Trump and going into a marketplace which I considered stagnant, which other people considered the establishment. I considered it stagnant. They considered the establishment. And I went into there and said, look, I believe I can do it better. And that's what we've done with 4 Networking. That's
interesting. And there's a lot of emotional, mental pressure about being on their own business, and perhaps you're more isolated, especially in the beginning when you may be on your own or...
Well, I think, you know, increasingly, regardless of what size you are as a business, you are isolated still, because even as a business owner, you know, there's stuff that you don't talk about, there's stuff that you keep, and, you know, and there's been times probably 4 years ago when this company was weeks, if not days away from collapsing, and the only thing that kept me up on that was that daft vision and dream and ambition, because actually without that, if it was just about motivation and money, it would have collapsed. So you need a purpose, and that's the difference, I believe, is that it's about ideas, vision and belief. It's about belief, and an individual, when you're running a business, needs to have 100% self-belief and 100% almost misguided belief that your business is doing something benign and positive.
Very good. We appreciate your thoughts today, Brad. We've mentioned the book in passing. It's on pre-order today, is that right? Yeah,
pre-order today. We're not even gone live with that yet. The guys are still working on it. It was pre-order today. And then I've got Now What the book, and also Now What Live, the seminar, which I'm doing a 100-seat seminar workshop as regards a sort of content on the book, bringing 100 people together in January. So it's at bradburton.biz/Now What for more information.
Very good. Thanks ever so much, Brad.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
All right.